patients, luminaries, and students. We, the team Legal Expatiate, feel privileged to welcome you all to the fourth day of our 5-day online national advanced workshop on arbitration proceedings. We feel honored and privileged to have Advocate Rajesh Rai sir as our guest speaker for today's session. Now I take this prerogative to introduce our guest speaker to you all. Honorable Sir is a law graduate from the University of Delhi, is an experienced lawyer practicing in the Supreme Court and the higher courts of India. A deft interpreter of the law with various landmark judgments to his credit, he carries a formidable reputation amongst colleagues and the peers in the Supreme Court and High Courts of Bar Associations. He started his career at the prestigious Ahmadi and Co., where he eventually became the briefing counsel for the additional Solicitor General of India on the behalf of the Union of India. He is an expert at arbitration with an experience of almost 21 years in which he has adjudicated numerous cases. He is also a sought advisor and counsel for various companies. Respected Sir is the managing partner of RR Legal Partners LLP. The firm has successfully made a nationwide presence, and under the aegis of Advocate Rajesh Rai, the firm has grown its excellence in varieties of subject and have clients from different businesses, legal propelled by the dedicated team of lawyers so that they grow and foster their businesses. We are truly blessed and fortunate enough to have such an eminent personality on our platform today. We heartily welcome you, sir. Before we proceed for the session, there are few instructions for all the attendees. You all are requested to kindly mute your audio and video mode so that it could not create any hindrance in the ongoing session. If you have any doubt, you can simply put it in the chat box of your control panel. It will be answered by the speaker at the end of the session. Now I request our guest speaker to kindly take over the charge and enlighten us all. Over to you, sir.
Sir, I request you to mute yourself. Sir, I request you to unmute yourself.
Yes, now can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Now you're audible.
So thanks Akansha and the team Legal Expatiate, and also I welcome my viewers. And this is a session on the arbitration, which is I hope it is going to be interesting as well as informative. So without it wasting any further time, let us start. So let us see, this is a workshop. I was going through the workshop what has been done in past 3 days. Let me share the screen. So we have done as Raju sir, Amarjit sir, and Vansa sir has taken few sessions on arbitration. What I am told to talk about is, one is regarding the drafting of the petition for enforcement of the arbitral award, and second is the petition for setting aside the final award. The third is appeal for setting aside interim measures awarded by the tribunal under section 17, and then draft an appeal against the refusal to set aside the arbitral award under sections 50 under section 34. Right. So before starting, and since I hope that the earlier sessions has been very informative and a lot of things have been learned by you, so I'll start with little brief overview. So why, when, and how it is to be done. So I am on the first point, why arbitration. So arbitration is today most sought after. Why arbitration is most sought after today is, there is obviously there are many reasons of it. You may be also aware of it. One thing, whenever it comes to the mind for the arbitration, it is normally the litigants, the lawyers, they all understand that it is an efficient and flexible and a quicker resolution and easier to schedule. It is also less complicated. Simplified rules of evidence and procedures are being used. You know that the CPC and the Evidence Act is not to be strictly implemented here. So setting aside of the award on these grounds is out of question. The privacy is the another thing where we, in the open courtroom, there are a lot of things that is to be discussed. But here it is in a boardroom, so there are chances that there will not be any leakages of the whatever the grievances are. Then there is an impartiality which is there. Obviously, this is something which is, if the judges or the arbitrator is not impartial, then this can be challenged. And we usually, this is quite debatable. Nowadays, it is becoming little expensive, but still we have a general perception that the arbitration is normally less expensive. And of course, the enforcement and the judgment which is passed. So that's why we choose the arbitration. And when is the arbitration is to be initiated? This is something we all know, that normally there has to be a written agreement, an arbitration clause is to be there, but that arbitration clause may be invoked, may not be invoked. So this arbitration clause is a kind of contingent contract, or it is there in case there is a dispute, then only it can be invoked. So when there is a dispute, then only arbitration is to be initiated, when there is a written contract. So how the arbitration is conducted? We are going to have these relevant sections. We know that there has to be a written agreement, then only the arbitration can be taking place, or there is some government policy, or where it is said that the institution that only medium of resolving the dispute is through the arbitration, like in NHI and other government enterprises, where it says that it has to be, whenever there is a dispute, it is to be through the arbitration only. So the sections which I am saying that we will be today, that there we have seen that 1940 Arbitration Act, and then 1996 Arbitration Act, and then the amendment in 2015. And now even after 2015, there is another committee of Justice Sri Krishna, which is again talking about certain changes, and which may come up within a couple of months or years. But as of now, whatever the law is and the sections which are relevant today for the subject will be, that is section 21E, section 7, section 9, section 11, section 16, section 17, 34, and 36. So 21E is regarding, I'll be discussing later why it is important, is when we are choosing the jurisdiction while challenging the award. So the jurisdiction has to be similarly what the jurisdiction we choose according to the CPC. Section 7 is important because this is normally objected to, and during the challenge it is said that 7 is regarding the written agreement. So it is said that it is not signed, and the other objections are there. So that is another ground where we will be looking at and how to challenge the arbitral award, and what are the ingredients which should be there in the drafting. Then section 9, we know that section 9 is an interim measure, that is the stay or the injunctions that is granted by the courts. Section 11 is there. Section 11 is for appointment of the arbitrator. Section 11 and 9 can be moved together also, or if 9 is only moved, section 11 is not moved. So in that case, when the interim is granted, then it is a duty of the parties to appoint the arbitrator or the person who has approached the for the injunction or for the relief, that within 90 days it has to go to the court or appoint the arbitrator. So section 16 is there, which is regarding the jurisdiction of the arbitral tribunal. When we say that the arbitration is with respect to a written agreement, so whatever the terms or whatever the area of jurisdiction or the arbitrator's jurisdiction is, that within that agreement only. So here also there are a lot of challenges which are being done, and it seems if it is you are able to show that there are the instances where the arbitral tribunal exceeds its jurisdiction. When it exceeds its jurisdiction, then obviously that portion, whatever the excess is, that can be cut out from that portion, and that no relief will be granted on that. And sometimes it is set aside also. Then there is section 17, which is the relief which is granted by the arbitrator. When the arbitration starts, the tribunal is there, and there is a fear of property being wasted, then section 17 is application for interim measure is filed. But when section 17 is filed, if it is not allowed, then you can go for even the appeal also directly to section 37. And then there is section 34. 34 is what we will be dealing with today. That is the challenging of the award, and section 36, that is how the enforcement of the award has to be there. So in an arbitration proceeding, this is the process. First, we have to verify that there is an arbitration agreement, then the appointment of the arbitrator is there. Then there's an arbitration proceeding. Arbitration proceeding, obviously, you know, most of the time it is a summary proceeding. Summary proceeding means that the cross-examination may not be necessary. This makes the arbitration proceeding speedier. Normally, it is through the evidence by way of affidavit. So the one part is a pleading, that is filing of the statement of claim, then the reply, and if there's a counterclaim is filed, then reply to the counterclaim, and then there is a replication, and then the issues are framed, and after that both the parties give their evidence by way of affidavit, and the matter is heard on arguments are heard, and finally it is decided. Sometimes the parties say that there are documents, there are discovery of the documents and other things which is required to be proved, and the arbitrator and the parties may agree on a procedure, or the arbitrator may itself decide that the cross-examination will be allowed. Otherwise, it is normally in most of the cases, cross-examination is not required. It is decided without cross-examination, only on the basis of the evidences that is filed by the parties. So finally, after the arbitration proceeding, the arbitral award is given. So there can be two scenarios only. One is either the award is accepted and the party honors it, and the party satisfy the other side if the award is against it. If it is not satisfied, then it will be challenging the award. And on the other side, the party who has won the award has the option of getting it enforced. At what stage it is to be enforced, and what are the other parameters where, and what is the method how it is to be enforced, that will be discussing. And then there is appeal. That appeal is the later on which comes. So as I have said, that in the award there is either enforcement or there is a challenge. So first we will be taking up what are the chances and what are the grounds on which the arbitration award can be challenged. See, normally when we talk or say that we are going to challenge the award under section 34. So we say these are the objections. We don't say it is appeal. So there are certain appeal means where there is only question of law can be there. But here there are certain points which has been mentioned, which we can take up, and those can be the grounds for setting aside of the award. So one is what I'm saying is that is 34 subsection 2A1. If you refer to, if you all have got the Baer Act and see this section, that the first one is the party is under incapacity. So you have to plead that the party has been incapacity, like it is a minor, it is the person was lunatic, or it was some other kind of incapacity where the this particular contract could not have been enforced. Then the other part is that the arbitration agreement is not valid. So this is also being taken. So I'll come to a chart also, which is a very interesting chart. What normally the consuls, when they are filing the cases, they are pleading for and they are challenging on the grounds, and what is the success rate. The third is no proper notice be given. It is very well can be understood that these no proper notice is given, dispute does not fall within the falls under the terms and scope of the agreement. That is the arbitral tribunal if it exceeds its jurisdiction. Then there is a composition of arbitral tribunal which is not in accordance to the agreement. Then also there are the chances that the award may be set aside. The other grounds which is on of challenges under section 34 is that there are certain disputes the parties have incapacity to perform or to incapacity is the first one, but here it is the dispute cannot be resolved through arbitration. Let us take an example. When we say that the dispute, this what exactly treats, and I will little elaborate it. It is section 34 subsection 2 subsection B subsection I. The subject matter of the dispute is not capable of settlement by arbitration under the law for the time being in force. Now, what does this mean? Let us take an example. Suppose there is a rent agreement and the parties agree for the arbitration. The tenant defaults in paying the rent, and after that the landlord has two options. One is to sue the tenant for the arrears of the rent. The second is for the possession of that property or recovery of the possession of his premises. As far as the recovery of the rent is concerned, that is a subject matter of arbitration. Despite having the arbitration clause in the agreement regarding the possession, the party cannot go for arbitration. There has been many judgments, some conflicting judgments, but this is what is clear. So it cannot be performed because there is a special enactment for it. The special enactment is, that is Transfer of Property Act, or if it is rent is below this, and depending on the various states, the parameters what is there, then it has to be, the other option is to go for the filing a suit for possession or suit for recovery. So that is there. So when there is a special agreement is there, then also it cannot be said that the arbitration is the option. On this, I'll be giving few details regarding this, but there are certain disputes which, despite the parties agree for, which is a void or which cannot be arbitrated, is the criminal offenses, the matrimonial disputes, the guardianship matters, where there is a special enactment is there, insolvency petitions, matters pertaining to landlord and tenant disputes, and testamentary matters, and like dissolution and winding up of the companies. So these are few of the examples where we say that if these kinds of issues are there, despite having a written agreement and all that, it cannot be taken. So we can take the plea of this. So we do not have to write all these things, that drafting that under so and so clause, the award is to be set aside. We have to make the grounds. We don't have to specifically mention it, but we should know that these are the grounds, and in broad what are going to be there in these grounds. Then award is in conflict with the public policy. That is section 34 2B2. This was the most abused. This clause was most abused, and it has been in every challenge. It was said that is against the public policy. If there's some illegality or patent illegality is there, it was said that it is against the public policy. In the latest amendment, that is the Arbitration and Conciliation Act 2015 amendments, it has been clarified what are the portions that are going to be against the public policy. I'll just read out just to have the understanding of it. What is the point which is inserted after 2015? The arbitral award is in conflict with the public policy of India. its explanation is given, that is this time it has been added in 2015. For the avoidance of any doubt, it is clarified that an award is in conflict with the public policy of India only if the making of award was induced or affected by fraud or corruption, or was in violation of section 75 or section 81. Second, it is in contravention with the fundamental policy of the Indian law. And third, it is in conflict with the most basic notions of morality and justice. So now you cannot claim anything or say that this is against the public policy, and that this has been now limited to these three portions only. Then the another insertion is, this is whenever you are challenging, this is in your favor, patent illegality on the face of the award. This is again, if you are able to make out there is a patent illegality, that is a ground of the challenge. So when we come to the basic topic, what has been given to me is that I have to tell you how the drafting of section 34 petition will be like. But there is nothing to say or talk about or tell you that how the drafting is to be done. You can see on the book of pleadings, or you can also come to know this from this Google if you search for what is the manner in which. But what I'm saying is, the grounds is very important, that is to be looked into, and these grounds has to be in this parameter. You cannot talk of any ground, and this is, the scope is more than what is in the appeal, though it is limited on certain points. But yes, there is a scope. If you read the award thoroughly and understand it, you will find some or the other point where you can challenge it. Because most of the times we see that though normally the judges are appointed as the arbitrators, but there are sometimes the procedures are not known. They are expert in the other fields, but somewhere the natural justice or the other portions are not followed. So those again become the point that this has not been done, this has not been done, though the court has dealt it very severely. And I'll just show you a chart which shows that in 80% of the cases, whatever the ground be, unless it is very clear, the awards are not set aside. So once the arbitral award is there, to get it set aside is very difficult. I'll come to section 36, which talks about how it is to be enforced. But it is very clear that the award to set aside, you have to be going for these grounds are to be made, and it has to be very strongly made. Then only you'll be able to say that yes, now this is to be set aside. But then once the award is against you or against your client, even if earlier what was there was automatic stay was there. Like if the moment you challenge section 34, notice the issue, there was automatic stay. That is also mandated. Now you have to move a separate application. Once you move that application, and even if it is allowed, then also this particular when the challenge is there and stay is there, if it is most of the time it is a money decree only or award is there, so you have to deposit the amount as per the CPC. What it says, whenever there is a money decree is there, the part or full, whatever it is, the discretion of the judge, the amount is to be deposited, the decretal amount or the awarded amount is to be deposited. So this is something which again discourages that the awards be challenged on each and every point. It's better to settle it unless you find it really to challenge, and the grounds are so effective that you know that the award can be set aside. Now I'll just share the statistics. It is somewhere I had come across. I don't know who has marked this pen on this. So this is the statistics where the award is challenged in high courts. Normally the award is challenged on these points where the total percentage of the challenge, most of the time it has been the jurisdiction. And you can see the success rate, it is 17.4%. This is the data which I have taken from few sources, and I think it is almost reliable and correct data that I am sharing with you. So jurisdiction is where 17.4% is a success, 80% of the time it is rejected by the courts. Public policy, again I said, now it has been limited, it is 16.55%. Then limitation is the another point. Limitation is where 11.68% and 83.71% is the again rejections. Violation of natural justice, bias, non-appreciation of facts, evidences, not a reasoned order or no grounds, not signed, stamped, not a party. These are many grounds, but primarily jurisdiction, public policy, limitation, violation of natural justice, and you see the success. 16.63% is the success and 78.4% is the rejection. This is in case of High Court, and this is in case of Supreme Court. Supreme Court, the success rate is better than the High Court. It is rejection is 50%. There is a modification which is 18.75%. So 31.25% is allowed. So one thing, when we are going for challenging the award, there are a few things you have to keep in mind. As I've said, that the seat of the arbitration or the venue of the arbitration, the parties are free to choose. But when it comes to challenging the award, the jurisdiction has to be according to CPC. It cannot be, suppose the arbitration proceeding or the venue has been in Goa and the entire cause of action has arisen in Delhi. The defendant or the judgment debtor is residing in Delhi or working for the business or gain here in Delhi. Then it is Delhi only which has a jurisdiction to challenge the award. This is one thing to keep in mind. When it comes to challenging the award before the court, the jurisdiction is as per CPC. We cannot go saying that because the arbitration seat was in Goa or it was in Calcutta, so therefore the Calcutta has a jurisdiction. The second point which we have to be careful about is that the limitation part, there is a time in which you have to challenge this award, which is 90 days, and if there is some correction or amendment, another 30 days is given. So 30 plus 90, this is what the limitation we have for challenging this. Then another point which is also important in state like Delhi, where there is no pecuniary jurisdiction as such, like in Haryana, whatever the amount or the value is, it is to be the application for the objection is to be filed in the court of the district judge only. But here I'll take the example of Delhi, where the jurisdiction of pecuniary jurisdiction of the district judges up to 1 crore, and beyond 1 crore it is High Court. So if the award challenge, the subject matter is more than 1 crore, so it is to be challenged before High Court, or it is. This is where sometimes you may feel difficult which jurisdiction I have to go, how I have to file it, and all that. When you come in the practice, you make all these things that this is within limitation. This is the jurisdiction, territorial and pecuniary jurisdiction are to be looked into. And then the grounds, which is very important, and what I say is there is no substitute for hard work. You all are quite intelligent, fresh, and you may be aware of a lot of laws. But if you do not do the research and do not read the award properly and do not try to bring within the ambit of section 34, the chances of getting your success is very less. So be careful when you're drafting the section 34 petitions. Now, we are coming on. This is another interesting aspect which I shared. Again, I was going through. We say what I was in the very initial slide, I told you that as far as the arbitration is concerned, the parties choose it primarily because it is efficient and quicker. let us see a data which shows that if it is challenged, what time it takes, and if continuous stay is there. This is a study by Niti Aayog, that it takes for lower courts more than 24 months to challenge the award, to decide the award. For high courts, it takes 12 months. Further, in case of Supreme Court, it takes an average period of around 48 months. So if you calculate first, suppose there is an award, say it is in Haryana, it is challenged and it is admitted, 692 days in district court, 395 days in high court, and 1421. So the total delay is 2508. If you add the time of the arbitration, this becomes a lot of delay. So this is an area which is to be looked into. Then enforcement, I am coming to enforcement. There are 3 sections only, but all these 3 are very important. I'll read all these 3 sections so you understand it. One is, we say award. The award becomes a decree the moment it goes for the enforcement. That is under section 36 subsection 1, where the time of making an application to set aside the arbitral award under section 34 has expired, then subject to the provisions of subsection 2, such award shall be enforced in accordance with the provisions of the Code of Civil Procedure Code in a manner as if it were a decree of the court. So that is where we say that we save time. If it goes to the court, suppose there is no arbitration clause and the matter goes to the court, then in the court, pleading, issues, admission denial, evidence, cross-examination, then appeal. Chances in appeal is very high because CPC and Evidence Act, there are a lot of points where you can discuss and go. There is no limitation to it. So on an average, if I say, it is 3 to 4 years if the parties go on fighting in the civil court. It is 3 to 4 years. And here, after this amendment, it's 18 months is the maximum time which the arbitrator is given. 12 months plus 6 months more with the consent of the parties, and beyond that, it is only after the leave of the court, and if the court grants, so an application is to be moved in the respective court for granting further period. So there you save time in this, and what you get after this is a decree. Award becomes a decree, and you can get it executed. Now, how the execution or enforcement is to be done is, obviously, when it becomes a decree, the entire CPC is applicable there, which is not applicable in the arbitration proceedings. Now it becomes applicable. So one is that, if you all are aware that whenever you are going for the execution of a money decree or any type of decree, the execution petition is filed, that is under section 21, under order 21 of the CPC. You have to find out the properties that are need to be attached and that are of the judgment debtor. That is, the losing party in the arbitration is called judgment debtor when you go to the executing court. The list of the properties are given in it. There can be the properties which are beyond the jurisdiction of the particular court. Say the judgment debtor is residing in Delhi, but he has a property in Calcutta also, he has a property in Punjab also, he has a property in Delhi also. And a money decree to be satisfied, you have to get the attachment of all these 3 properties, then only it is to be satisfied. So what is the way out? For that, you move an application for issuing a registration certificate, which is issued by the respective executing court, and this you have to take it to Calcutta, this you have to take to the particular state, Haryana or Chandigarh, wherever the property is situated, and there the district judge will take the process, and normally the property get auctions and the money is now remitted, or it is satisfied in a way, it is given to the court, and the party gets satisfied. The receiver is to be appointed. Then sometimes during the execution, if you feel that if your party is knows that this is a property and it is to be wasted, or he can just frustrate the claim by transferring this property, you can immediately ask for the stay on that. So again, when we are going for the enforcement of the award, certain things you should be clear about is the jurisdiction, the amount plus interest, that is what is to be seen, and the limitation is other point, but here you do not have to be much worried about the limitation. The limitation which you have for execution is as per the CPC, which is in case of a decree that is governed by Article 136 of the Limitation Act, that is around exactly 12 years, and the execution is only after when the party has exhausted the remedy. If it is under challenge, if it is stayed, you cannot go for the enforcement of the award. Then the second two points in 36 are very clear. It do not need a lot of interpretation. Section 36 subsection 2 says that where an application to set aside the arbitral award has been filed in the court under section 34, the filing of such an application shall not be itself rendered that award unenforceable unless the court grants an order to stay the operations of the said arbitral award in accordance with the provisions of subsection 3 on separate application made for that purpose. So it's clear that it's not automatic stay. The stay has to be after the express application is moved. So be very clear about it. Whenever you are challenging the award under section 34, then an application under section 36 subsection 2 is also to be given for the stay of the award. Then the third is upon filing of an application under subsection 2 for a stay of the operation of the arbitral award, the court may, subject to such conditions as it may deem fit, grant stay of the operation of such award for the reasons to be recorded in writing, provided that the court shall, while considering the application for grant of stay in case of an arbitral award for the payment of money, have due regard to the provisions for grant of stay of a money decree under the provisions of Civil Procedure Code. And that provision is to deposit the money. So these three procedures are for the enforcement of the award which we are looking at, and these are the requirements which I have told that for enforcing the award it is 12 years. The award is treated as a decree. We have to again see the territorial and the pecuniary jurisdiction, where the pecuniary jurisdiction is there, and then the RC is issued where the property is situated. So there has been the cases where there is a disposal of the awards challenge. I've taken this as out of the topic, but this is one where we are again, our advent or our effort is to make the arbitration more speedier. So the limitation has been there. One clause, the 29A is there. As I told, 12 months is for the arbitration, another 6 months. And then further extension can be only by the court. So these are the limitations. If you are going for an interim measure under section 9, then once the interim measure is granted, then within 90 days of the passing of the interim measure, arbitration proceedings have to be commenced, arbitrators to be appointed. You cannot sit on the interim order and do not appoint the arbitrator. Then within this time, the reply is to be given by the other side. 12 months is the date of the formation of the tribunal. The award is to be passed. Another 6 months may be further given. Then it is regarding the extension, that is another 60 days and 1 year for this to dispose the application to set aside the award. If the order is challenged, this is what is given. And in Delhi, I find the judges are quite efficient and this is being followed. most of the time notices, as I've told you, I've shown the data also, and most of the time it is discussed, it is on the same day it is decided, and the persuasion is along with this the mediation and conciliation also. If there is some kind of infirmity in the order, the court then and there, with the consent of the parties, pass the order, and then the matter is settled amicably. So this is all on the disposal. Then we are talking about the appeal. I'm sorry we could not make the slide for the appeal, but the appeal which we have the option of the appeal, the one is section 34 and 37 is regarding the appealable orders. It says that notwithstanding anything contained in any other law for the time being in force, an appeal shall lie from the following orders: to the court authorized by the law to hear appeals from the original decrees of the court passing the order, namely refusing to refer the parties to arbitration under section 8, granting or refusing to grant any measure under section 9, setting aside or refusing to set aside the arbitral award under section 34. It is very clear. One is section 8. Section 8 is when there is an arbitration clause, and despite that the parties are filing a civil suit, the court grants and says that no, it is to be in the arbitration, and one party do not agree. That is one. The second, granting or refusing to grant any measures under section 9. That is the interim measure, and this is appealable. And then obviously the order challenge, if it is there, it is not allowed by under section 34. Then you have the option of going for an appeal also. But after this, there is no second appeal. The only option that is left is to go to Supreme Court and file an SLP. So its second is about it. An appeal shall also lie to a court from an order of the arbitral tribunal accepting the plea referred to in subsection 2 and subsection 3 of the section 16, B, granting or refusing to grant an interim measure under section 17. No second appeal shall lie from an order passed in appeal under this section, but nothing in this section shall affect or take away any right to appeal to the Supreme Court. So normally, if you are not satisfied by this, three opportunities are there. If you are aggrieved by the award, one is to go under section 34, then under 37, then finally filing the SLP and challenging it before the Honorable Supreme Court. So I think I'm in time and I have completed. So
thank you, sir, for such a wonderful and knowledgeable session. If you permit, may I please present some questions to you, which are there in the chat box?
please.
So most of it has been answered by you already, but still I'll take this one. The question is, in Delhi, whether award up to 1 crore be challenged under section 34 before district judge only?
It is up to, yes, you are right. It is up to 1 crore. It is to be before the district judge. It is from 3 lakh to 1 crore, the jurisdiction of the district judge is there. And beyond that, it is High Court. And it comes under the, in the category of the commercial disputes. So the Commercial Courts Act is applicable on it.
Thank you, sir. In continuation with that, there is one more question. Where to challenge of a order passed under section 9 and 17 respectively?
See, again, it is said that at the time of going for challenging the awards under section 34, or it is under the appeal, it has to be the next court that is there. If suppose there is the jurisdiction initially has been of, say, section 9 is normally it is filed before the High Court only. And if it is before the district judge, then the section 9 is there, it is to be challenged before High Court, and if it is before High Court, then further it is under section 37, the appeal in the High Court only.
Thank you, sir. There are just this question in the chat box. If there are any, you can unmute yourself and ask to the speaker directly.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, myself Alok Mishra from Delhi.
Ji.
So there is one question from my side regarding the challenge of arbitral award under section 34. In one of the matter, the learned arbitrator has decided the counterclaim of the respondent, whereas as per the provisions or the terms of the condition of the contract, there was no such provision to allow that counterclaim. So what the learned arbitrator has done, he has allowed their counterclaim despite of the fact that they have not produced any supporting documents for the expenditure. Like they have what the learned arbitrator did, he allowed the counterclaim of retendering, cost of retendering. But they have not any placed on record any bills or any subsequent vouchers that could prove that so much was the cost. So can this award be challenged?
So the award is now final. The award is given.
Award is final, sir.
Okay. Yes, it can be. Obviously, if you are saying this, you can say that the arbitrator has exceeded its jurisdiction, and section 16 is on it. And was it an issue before the arbitrator?
No, it was not the issue.
You didn't raise the objection to the this thing that it is not arbitrable because it is not within the jurisdiction.
In my reply, what I have submitted, that it is contrary to the terms and conditions of the contract.
Okay, that's fine. One is that the arbitral tribunal has power to rule its own jurisdiction. So you could have objected to it before the arbitral tribunal only. That is the first thing. Yes. And even if you have not objected to it, because it is a patent illegality on the face of it, you can still challenge it under section 34.
And one more thing, sir, if there is no provision in the contract that the arbitration cost should to be awarded to any parties, can the arbitrator has the power to award the cost of arbitration proceeding?
See, the cost is something which is nothing to do with the contract. The cost and the interest, this is the power of the arbitrator, can award it.
Okay, sir. One more question is there that in one of the matter, the award was passed by the arbitrator in favor of my client, that is claimant. So the respondent challenged the award under section 37. And in that case, we raised the grievance objection that the arbitration seat was where the whole proceeding was conducted, that was in Delhi. I will also mention here that the arbitrator was appointed under section 11 by the Honorable High Court. So what they have, the opposite party has done, the respondent has done, they have challenged under 34 as per the terms and condition of their agreement, where they are saying that all disputes shall be at the place of under the jurisdiction of Noida. So we raised the objection that as the proceedings were conducted and arbitration seat was in Delhi, so they cannot challenge.
Okay,
but our application was dismissed because the learned judge said that they can challenge, they have the jurisdiction.
It was as per CPC, the jurisdiction was there.
Sir, as per CPC,
what part of cause of action is apart from the seat of the arbitration? Was there anything else?
It was basically a property of JP Associate. It was in Noida.
Or the property is situated there only. So as per CPC, because the property is situated, that could be the reason. Having said this, the entire facts is to be looked into, and then only we can reply. And prima facie, if the it can have the jurisdiction here in Delhi as well as at that place also.
Because in recent judgment of Honorable Supreme Court, there was a clarification regarding this, that where all the proceedings is conducted, arbitration proceeding is conducted, that the court have the jurisdiction to entertain 34.
Yes.
So in terms of we also made this submission, but that was not accepted by the learned judge. So he rejected our application. So we are now planning to go appeal against this order before the High Court.
Yes.
So is it viable or feasible?
Yes, I can recall there, because there has been one matter where I have been dealing the client. The arbitrator was appointed by Delhi. Then there was some challenge which was done in Hisar, because it was at that time the court refused to entertain, because the award is the arbitrator is appointed in Delhi and the entire jurisdiction is at Delhi. But in that case, the seat of the arbitration, the arbiter appointment, as like in your case, it was here in Delhi only. So therefore, the Delhi was only having the jurisdiction, and it was some citation was given, and as per that, we filed here, the jurisdiction was there. But additional jurisdiction can be at a place where the cause of action is arisen or not. That is a question that is to be looked into on the basis of the facts. You just go through whether, as per CPC, is there any point where the jurisdiction can be at that place also.
Okay, so in this matter, the section 11 petition was allowed by the Honorable Allahabad High Court. They made the seat of arbitration proceeding in Delhi.
That is okay, but with the seat, as I have earlier said, that the seat of the arbitration is, to my understanding, is not the only reason where the jurisdiction can be chosen. That party has, as per CPC, 3 options. One is where the cause of action is arisen, where the defendants reside, and the third is obviously the if more than one defendant is there or the respondent is there, it is there. So to come to the exactly, you have a case, I can understand, but that is something on this a little research or on the understanding of the facts can be done, and you can go ahead with the assailing the award in the higher court.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. There are 2 questions in the chat box. I will present that. So the question is, in case the place of arbitration is at neutral.
You are not quite audible. Can you be a little louder, please?
Sir, now I'm audible?
Yes.
Okay. So the question is, in case the place of arbitration is at neutral place, in such case, how to identify the jurisdiction to challenge the award?
As I've told you that venue can be anywhere, but the jurisdiction is to be as per CPC. So if it is in case of a money, it depends, it is a property or it is a money. And then from section 16 to section 20 of the CPC is clear about it, because you just refer to the clause that is section 2(1) subsection E, which says that for all other purposes, the jurisdiction will be as per CPC only. So therefore, whatever the jurisdiction is, it has nothing to do with the seat of the arbitration. It has to do with the section 2(1)E. I just discussed it. It is exactly 2 subsection 1 subsection E, and the first one, I. In case of an arbitration other than international commercial arbitration, the principal civil court of original jurisdiction in district and includes High Court in exercise of its ordinary original civil jurisdiction, having jurisdiction to decide the questions forming the subject. If the same had been the subject matter of suit, but does not include any civil court of the grade inferior to the principal civil court.
Thank you so much, sir. I would take the last question in the chat box.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Let me complete this one.
Sir, it was very. Please go ahead.
Could you please elaborate the requirements under section 36?
Requirement under section 36
Yes,
for
sir.
enforcing the award.
Yes, sir.
We just discussed it, that it becomes a decree, and once the all the remedies have been availed, and like the party may sit and do not challenge the award, then in that case after 90 days, if there is some correction in the award, then another 30 days, then you can go for the enforcement, and the enforcement has to be exactly like filing an execution petition before the court. There you have to decide the jurisdiction and the limitation. The two things are there. Limitation is not a big issue because it is 12 years. The other part is the jurisdiction, and where the cause of action is arisen, or where the court has passed the award, at that place it is to be given.
Thank you so much, sir. Now the participant can ask themselves. Whoever was next.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
So that is my query is in respect to one of the query which is raised earlier, that is in relation to counterclaim or set off. In recent amendment of 2016 and thereafter in 2019, the additional point has been added, inserted. The respondent can submit counterclaim or plead set off.
Is there. Yes.
Yeah. So in that respect, now the even if there is a no clear reference in the arbitration agreement in respect to set off on counterclaim, still arbitrator can decide this counterclaim and set off in his arbitral award.
Yes. So this is what, in addition to, you have the right whenever the statement of claim is filed. This is an insertion, and section 2 is, but subject to that is a part of the agreement, and it is within the ambit of that contract.
No, my query is in respect to that only, sir, that there is no reference in arbitration agreement, irrespective of that whether counterclaim.
So then the arbitral tribunal do not have the jurisdiction to adjudicate upon it.
Yes, thank you, sir.
So one question.
Yes.
So what is the remedy available for the party if award is not passed even after the lapse of 12 months and again 6 months?
Yes, so section 29A is inserted. This is another amendment. The remedy is to file an application before the High Court if you are the aggrieved party, and even pray for the substitution of the arbitrator. And you have to give the reasons, and I had filed one case. I think I was the first in High Court Delhi to file such an application, and I got that arbitrator substituted. And the judge was very clear about it, that in 18 months you have done nothing, so we don't expect that you are going to file. The very purpose of going in arbitration has failed. So substituted the arbitrator, another arbitrator was appointed. Yes, the proceedings up to the point which has been done by the previous arbitrator, the further commencement will be from there. It will not be from the very start. So you go to High Court for the substitution of the arbitrator.
Thank you,
under
sir.
section 29A.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. I just have one question very briefly.
Please.
The understanding that I formed after your lecture is that 2(1)(e) talks about the court, the jurisdiction that you have to follow is as per the CPC when you want to go for an appeal under section 34.
Right.
Now, in case of an arbitration which is international,
right,
the for a party located outside India, CPC may not necessarily apply. So,
right,
in that case, should we depend on the seat?
See, especially I was told to talk about the foreign awards and its execution. I have not gone into it. But
Okay.
yes, it is can be enforced. It is the agreement, and then definitely, to my understanding, it can be in India, and when it is in India, as it will be as per CPC only, the jurisdiction.
Okay. So if the party is located, one party is in India and the other is in Singapore,
Yes.
they both enter into a contract, they have a dispute,
Yes.
they refer it to arbitration, the seat is in, the seat is SIAC.
Yeah.
Suppose they have mentioned that SIAC is the center for arbitration.
Right.
Now, if that SIAC award issues an award against the party in India, so that Indian party, aggrieved party, will go for setting aside the award where? Will it go to the Singapore High Court or will it go to the High Court in India? Because the property is in India.
The properties in India, then see, the SIAC has its own rule. For setting aside is a different thing, and enforcement is a different thing. Earlier you talked about the enforcement.
Yes, yes.
And challenging is something which is as per the SIAC rules.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Right.
Hello, sir. My name is Tulsiram, calling from Hyderabad.
Yeah.
I got an award and it is challenged in High Court. Being the award creditor, how can you use Section 4 against Section 34?
Section 4 of what? Arbitration?
Yes, or favor of the right to object. So practically, I mean, how can I go ahead and this is very, very obvious. You could have raised during the initial proceedings, which you haven't. And now you are coming up with ulterior motive to set my award. So how can I take that ground?
So
I mean, if at all you got any of that experiences, sir, please do share.
Yes. I do not have any experience of Section 4 or waiver of right, but you may connect to me later on. Also, we can discuss on this point.
Thank you. And one more question, sir.
Yes.
In the arbitration evidences, when I'm taking evidences being a arbitrator, so what about original copies or CA copies versus photocopies?
Means primary, secondary evidence you are talking about.
Yes. How can I make a call on it?
So as I've said, that Evidence Act is not strictly applicable. So one is obviously the admission denial. You can just go through, go for the admission denial if the document is admitted, that is there. Then the second is that if you are permitted to cross-examine to prove the document. So, but it is not necessary that except the agreement, all the documents are to be in original. Unless other party disputes, then if it is disputed, then you have to prove those documents.
So other party has to prove?
Yes.
Then only I can admit it. I can take that into consideration being an arbitrator.
Yes, other party has to prove it, one. And you have to see that what are the instances or what are the things. But as a matter of practice, if somebody is disputing, you have to look into whether this document is to be taken on record or not. But the primary, secondary evidence and all those things, though to a certain extent can be applied, but it cannot be strictly, it should not be strictly applied in this case. And it is your fine sense of judgment, and it may prevail when the matter is challenged on that point.
Okay. Sir, one more question. In Hyderabad, the pleadings have to be completed in 6 months from the both parties. That's what we are following it. And it is unwritten rule. Is the same thing, sir, there also?
This is, I just discussed about the limitation, and normally the limitation is on to this effect is only very clear about it, that the pleading has to be completed at earliest, and that to be within exact time I do not know, but there is some period where that is mentioned. That slide I shared with you.
Okay. And the last question, sir. The arbitration
regarding the pleading, normally the what we say is 12 and 6 months. That is a different, that it is to be decided. Regarding pleading, it's basically the arbitrator's prerogative. If he is to allow it and allows it, then in that case, subject to the cost and all that, or he may just strike off the defense and all that. So that exact period, I think that for the statement of claim is not mentioned, no?
Yes, not mentioned, sir.
It is,
Sir,
it is not-
usually it is not mentioned, and this pleading 6 months also not mentioned.
Yeah.
But this 12 months and 6 months clock will start after 6 months. Is that, sir, what you are following there?
No.
Okay.
It
Is
has
from the
nothing
appointment
to-
of arbitrator.
From the appointment of the arbitrator under section 20, when the arbitrator reference notice is given, it is from that date.
So that means that 6 months is already included in this 18 months.
Yes. I just read section 20, commencement of the arbitral proceeding. If you read 29A and you read 21, when is the commencement of the arbitral proceeding? Unless otherwise agreed by the parties, the arbitral proceedings in respect of particular dispute commence on the date on which the request for that dispute to be referred to arbitration is received by the respondent. So you read 21 and then 29, then you will find that it is the date of the reference when it is given, it is the date of the commencement of the proceeding.
So that I understand that 6 months is included and this 18 months.
Yes.
Okay. Sir, one last question. This arbitration fee, the act says usually on the award data. So how it is being followed, sir? I mean, we are splitting equally because already the award loser will be in pain. So except the institutional charges, apart from award fee, so we are mostly taking from the award winner only.
Right. No, it's not like that, sir. You have a schedule that is there in the fourth schedule of the recent Arbitration and Conciliation Act. The
That is
fees
fee,
is
yes.
to be as per that, unless the parties agree for other fees and the arbitrator also agrees for it. If there is no agreement as such, then it is to be charged as per the fourth schedule. And the parties are to give 50% each, and it is at the final adjudication, if you find and you see that the award is granted, that this cost of the other side can be granted. So obviously the total cost borne plus whatever the additional is, it can be granted to the other side, the entire cost of the arbitration.
So the entire cost of arbitration, more or like 50% on each parties.
50% on each party. Yeah.
Okay. That's all, sir. And I will connect with you on 4 and 4 versus 34, sir.
Please.
I am glad, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for clearing the doubts of attendees in that depth and for making a conceptual clarity. We are at the verge of ending this session. We, the team Legal Expatiate, express our gratitude toward our guest speaker for today's session, Advocate Rajesh Rai, sir. We are grateful to you for taking your time out and for enriching us with your words, knowledge, and wisdom. This is going to be very helpful in our future endeavors. At last, we thank all the attendees for being cooperative throughout the session. For the last session, please be there at 5:30 tomorrow. There is a slightly change in the tomorrow timings. Till date, stay safe, stay tuned. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Bye to all.